Brilliant. Well, I'm going to welcome Wendy from Phonic Books, Wendy Tweedie. And I'm going to just do a quick introduction about Wendy, and then we're going to move on to a Q&A about her experiences with exporting and selling overseas. So correct me if I'm wrong, but Wendy worked for many years teaching reception and year one.
Yes.
And then you went on to qualify as a specialist SLD teacher. SPLD teacher, and ran a dyslexia unit in a secondary school in Norfolk. And then she's been a head teacher at the Bloomfield Learning Centre. And in this role, she assessed and coached children between the ages of 6 and 15 with specific learning difficulties from Southwark schools and surrounding boroughs. You're also a sounds right trainer, is that right?
That's right, yes.
And I believe you found it kind of frustrating not being able to find suitable books for beginner readers, since most schemes relied on the look and say method, and it was clear that this is not really working.
That's right.
And yeah, you're welcome to introduce yourself a bit further. And
no, that's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Great. And then we'll start. So if you wanted to tell us a little bit about Phonic Books and sort of how it began.
Yes, well, the day I retired, 2 teachers came up to me and said there were not the structured reading books that matched what we were teaching. And I said, well, I can't draw. And Claire said, I can draw. And Tammy said, I love writing books. And I said, well, I'd like to run a company. So we got together and we wrote our first 14 books. And we had our first exhibition. In fact, it was this exhibition. And we went on from there. We never looked back, because actually we were writing books that teachers needed if they were doing structured phonic teaching with children. And we moved from catering for 6, 7-year-olds, and we moved on to teaching older children with catch-up books, but with the same phonic progression.
Brilliant. And so when did you realise that Phonic Books had sort of an international appeal?
Well, we tried the easy market first. We thought an English-speaking country would be a good place to go. And UKTI were running it was what do you call them?
Trade show
a trade
mission?
show, that's right, a trade show mission in Sydney. So we took advantage of the trip that we were provided with, which was absolutely great. At that time, they let us go by plane. They took us by plane, British Airways. And my husband did an EMRS, which is doing research into what the need was out there. And we went to Western Australia, we went to Melbourne, and then we went over to Sydney, which is where the trade mission was.
Brilliant. And so how did you, other than working with sort of UKTI and their experts, how did you start to get your products overseas?
Well, because special needs was the criteria, we went to the special needs centres. And we were very lucky to meet somebody called Mandy Nathan in Perth, who runs an amazing centre there. And she took to our books, and she's our major customer, in fact. She goes all around Australia promoting a phonic way of teaching, and that helps sell our books too.
That's brilliant. So how much research did you do into the market before you went there?
We went to schools, really. I belong to a very large family. And so in Western Australia, we visited lots of cousins who were teachers. And we went into their schools and discussed and showed them our books. And that was the beginning. Yes.
Brilliant. And what, other than, obviously you mentioned about English speaking, but what made you decide to pick Australia and other markets that you've entered? Why those places?
Well, our books are really only good for children who can speak English. So you have the international school market. So we went to Singapore, and there we went. In fact, it was at this exhibition about 10 years ago that a lady from Singapore saw our books, said, I like them, and she became our distributor in Singapore. So we actually dropped in on Singapore and went to see her, but she was selling our books anyway. We went to Dubai. We'd never been to Dubai, but we went with BISA, the British Education Association, and we exhibited at their exhibition there, and that spreads the word. And then Abu Dhabi, lots of teachers in Abu Dhabi came to Dubai, and slowly we are selling there. And we went to Singapore. Singapore is a different market because you have to go ahead of time and you have to make yourself known, and then you go back again. And this is what we did. We had a lovely person in Hong Kong help us who worked for the consulate there. And so we went the second time, and then we met a distributor. And it's a slow market in Hong Kong, but somebody knocked on my door yesterday. He had my catalogue from our visit 4 years ago, and he said, I want to buy your books, and I want my parents to buy your books. So, fingers crossed. That's going to... So it's word of mouth, isn't it? And a lot of luck, and...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It leads me quite nicely onto my next question, actually, about how important relationship building is, especially in markets like Singapore. Has it been really crucial for your success?
Well, possibly we should go to Singapore again. The trouble is it costs a lot of money. And I think money is always the problem, and time. And we're still producing new books, so we have to gauge what we're going to do. We are moving into the United States, and there we go to the Dyslexia Association, the International Dyslexia Association shows, their conferences, in fact. And we found a distributor. We were really delighted to find a distributor there. It is the way to go to find distributors, for us anyway. It's at these shows, at all conferences, yeah.
And that leads me on to kind of what's the plan? What's the next 12 months look like for Phonic Books?
Well, we're producing more books. We always produce books that teachers ask us to produce. We're pretty teacher-led in what we do. And sometimes our books, there's too big a jump between one set and the other. So we try and infill with something when we're asked to. But what did you ask me? You asked me something else.
What the plan was.
The plan was...
What are you,
was,
the next 12 months? Any new markets? Any new adventures?
Not at the moment. We want to consolidate United States. So we're doing that. And then possibly, it depends. We don't know whether India might be a market. But it all takes time. And we feel that we only want to do one country and then move on to another country when we feel we've done what we should there.
Well, I was going to say, what advice would you give to people, if not challenges to overcome, but what advice would you give to people looking to export?
Well, yes, one of the difficulties when you're writing books is you don't want people to copy them, and that's a very difficult issue to cater for. We've tried to register our books in China, but we haven't been very successful, so that's why we're not going into China at the moment very much. Hong Kong is different, so, but we'll see what happens there. Okay. Yes.
Exciting times for Phonic Books then.